The call came just after sunset. Her voice was small, trembling, threaded with fear. "Uncle, this bus feels scary." My niece, 7 years old, too innocent to invent dread. I told her to stay calm, that she'd be fine, that I'd see her soon. Hours later, the hospital lights stabbed my eyes. The bus had folded itself into metal and screams. They said she was lucky to be alive. I stood at her bedside, my chest caged with guilt, until I felt a presence behind me, my wife. Her voice cracked as she looked at my niece, body wrapped in tubes and bruises. "She wasn't supposed to be here," she whispered. The words weren't grief, they were confession. Something inside me went still. I replayed her words all night. She wasn't supposed to be here. Not "I can't believe this happened," not "poor child." Supposed, planned, designed. I turned to her in the dark of our bedroom. She pretended to sleep. The rise and fall of her breathing too even, too rehearsed. My mind split in two. One part begged for sanity, told me I was reading shadows into smoke. The other part, colder, remembered every moment I'd ignored. The late-night messages, her sudden disappearances, the way her smile faltered when my niece came around. I buried suspicion for years. Love can do that. It makes you blind, deaf, obedient. But betrayal sharpens the senses. And her voice, trembling in that hospital, had cut through me with surgical precision. I started quietly. No accusations, no sudden moves. Her phone left on the counter. A password I already knew but pretended not to. Messages deleted, but fragments remained. An address, a payment, my niece's school mentioned in passing. Too much to be coincidence. I watched her patterns. She left early for errands, returned late with excuses. Every story neatly folded, as if written before she spoke it. At night, I combed through financial records, tracing transfers through accounts that weren't ours. Money tied to names I recognized from my darker years. Men who dealt in shadows, who made accidents look like fate. And in the silence of my office, I began piecing together a puzzle no one was meant to see. The bus wasn't chance, it was arrangement. And my wife was the bridge between innocence and ruin. The evidence came together like snapped bone, unmistakable. A contract masked as logistics. Payments tied to her signature. Calls between her and a man who handled removals. My niece listed as a variable, a test. I laid it all out on the dining table, paper after paper, cold, clinical proof. When she walked in, her eyes darted, widening as recognition carved itself into her face. I didn't speak, not yet. She reached for a page, trembling. Where did you get this?" I finally looked up at her. My voice was calm, almost detached. "You said she wasn't supposed to be there." The color drained from her. Tears welled. Her mouth opened, closed. No words came. She knew she was caught, and she knew I wouldn't rage. I wouldn't break plates or scream. I was past that. I simply watched her unravel. Revenge doesn't always require blood. Sometimes it only requires silence. I slid the last document toward her, proof enough to bury her life, her name, her freedom. Her hands shook as she gripped it. "Please," she whispered, "I didn't mean—" I raised my hand, not to strike, to stop. "You don't speak," I said softly. Her shoulders collapsed. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her, crushed under the weight of her own treachery. I didn't shout, I didn't threaten. I just gathered the papers back into a folder, stood, and walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard her sobs crack open, raw and desperate. I didn't turn around. The hospital was quieter that night. My niece slept peacefully, monitor steady, her tiny chest rising with fragile rhythm. I sat beside her, watching, breathing with her. No one else was in the room. No betrayers, no liars. just truth. And truth is colder than any blade. It doesn't scream, it doesn't burn, it simply is. I realized then I wasn't broken. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was clear. The kind of clarity that ends marriages, that severs ties without hesitation, that leaves betrayal behind like ash in the wind. When I left that hospital, I didn't look back at her. Not once. Because the cruelest punishment isn't death, it's being forgotten.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. Subscribe now to Cheating Stories Insight World for more amazing stories.